It's so good to see you again here today. And as always, I am so excited to be hosting today's talk for Life Coach University. As always, Life Coach University is a paid forward platform. So just as we are paying it forward by having these sessions, we would love it if you paid forward in some way too, whether that's through a smile or a form of kindness or whatever way you feel works for you. So today we're going to be talking about overwhelm. Now, all of us, have very busy lives at times. Sometimes it's very calm and other times it's very overwhelming, right? We live in a high pressure environment with work, family, relationships, expectations from ourselves and from others. And to make matters even more challenging, we are undergoing the uncertainty and after effects of a pandemic. So things can become overwhelming. Yeah, it leaves many of us feeling like we are in over our heads, which doesn't make the situation easier because it leaves us with this inability to handle what's coming our way effectively. So feeling overwhelmed is a symptom of stress. It actually affects over 60% of Americans, and overwhelm is caused by the sense of stress, and it somehow overweighs your own coping abilities. Yeah, and when you're experiencing overwhelm, you may feel like you have too much on your plate, and you don't even have enough time to get things done. So overwhelm can make you feel stuck, trapped and unsure of what action to take. So when you don't know how to deal with overwhelm, everything feels complex and all-consuming. It creates a level of complexity in our minds that makes it difficult to think clearly and take action. So what does it mean to be overwhelmed? I've talked a little bit about the emotions behind it. Yeah. Basically, one of the things that happens is you're emotionally overwhelmed, and then you completely submerge your thoughts and emotions, to the point where you feel completely frozen or paralyzed, and you lack productivity. So imagine if you've ever been into the ocean and sometimes you get submerged after a rough wave, you're underwater. It's scary. You may not know which way is up or which way to swim. It may leave you feeling stunned and unable to react. And you may be, unable to think rationally or functionally. So it affects you in that moment. And so overwhelm is something like that in our lives. We face so many different challenges sometimes, and we have that feeling of being stuck, right? So overwhelm, in the ocean, we feel paralyzed in our body because, we're stunned. But overwhelm has a lot of cognitive malfunction. It affects our cognitive skills, and that's because of the manifestation of stress. So when you've ever felt overwhelmed, you might feel incredibly exhausted. You may feel confused, forgetful, and of course it causes procrastination and a lack of focus. So of course you're unable to make decisions and take action. And this cycle continues unless you find a way out of it, right? So, all of us have different things that may overwhelm us. We have different lives, different responsibilities. So things like work responsibilities, relationships, traumatic experiences. Overwhelm can also be for a short period of time normally. And it can also be for a longer period of time. Other aspects that may, overwhelm you: financial worries, environmental warnings, health concerns. Now, when we're dealing with these hardships and these unwieldy emotions, we often don't know what to do. But there are ways to handle overwhelm. Yeah. If you've experienced overwhelm before, what has it been like for you? Think about that. Yeah. And what have you tried to overcome it, and has it worked for you? And perhaps write those things down so you already have an awareness of what you've done previously and whether it's successful or it wasn't. And then you can really focus on what we can do now. So you may already have strategies in place, but if you don't, you can add the strategies I'm going to talk about in a little while to see what overwhelm you can do when you're overwhelmed. Yeah. Now, ironically, when we're overwhelmed, we try and do more. We try and work more hours. We try and take on more. But that leaves us with a racing mind, and then we're unable to even problem solve. So again, this cycle keeps continuing. So it's clearly vital we all learn to deal with our overwhelm in order to manage our lives to the best of our ability, or we will be stuck in this cycle. Now, here are certain tips that I would advise to help with overwhelm. Okay. My key suggestion is always to first try to relieve the feelings that come with overwhelm, such as fear, frustration, despair, stress. And one of the things that I would always start with is breathing. Yeah. People underestimate how powerful breathing can be. Panic, that sometimes comes with overwhelm, causes breathlessness. And so we need to regain this control and calm ourselves down. So one way to really align with ourselves is to take a moment to breathe. Sometimes even if you're in a meeting or you're speaking to someone, you may get this sense of overwhelm. Yeah. So this particular breathing technique you can even use when you're speaking to somebody. So all you need to do is take a deep breath through your nose. And let it out through your mouth. And as you do that, try and relax your shoulders too, because we don't realize how we often tense our shoulders up when we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed. And then you have to acknowledge you're feeling overwhelmed. It's okay. It's okay to understand that you're feeling overwhelmed in a certain way or at a certain time. We may have emotions such as fear, frustration, despair, stress, anger, all of these emotions and the subset of emotions that are linked to it are part of overwhelm. And often we actually get angry with ourselves for feeling that way. And it doesn't always have to be the case, because when things can be difficult, we have to allow these emotions and understand them. Then a daily practice that really helps is just being mindful. Take a moment to be present and explore your surroundings, what's around you. And, of course, it's daily practice of meditation or allows us to be in the present moment. Recently, I was speaking to one of my young coachees, and I was telling them about a quote from the Kung Fu Panda movie. And the quote was, yesterday's history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. So oftentimes, when we're dealing with overwhelm, we're always worried about what's happened, what's going to happen, or what's already happened. And we never focus on that present moment. So it's very important that we do allow ourselves to be in that present moment. And of course, one of the other ways that you can do that is by being grateful. Immediately when you have that sense of overwhelm, once you've done your breathing, think about the things you're currently grateful for. What is going well? Rather than going from a point of, oh my gosh, everything is going wrong, there is no possible hope. And really, really think about the bright parts and things you're grateful for, whether that's, your health, the ability to breathe. It can be something small, but it does help. So we often feel this sense of overwhelm, but we never quite dig deep, wonder what we're overwhelmed about. So one of the tips I would suggest is to actually identify what is causing you to feel overwhelmed. Yeah. Get to the source of what is causing the overwhelm. Reflect on that area in your life. What is it? Is it home? Is it work? Is it school? Is it your relationships? And then dig deeper. What specifically in that particular part of your life is causing you to feel stress or overwhelmed? And then, so write down the causes. It could be, too many chores at home, or it could be, you're finding it typically your time management skills are not as where they should be, or you're struggling in a particular relationship, or you've got work responsibilities that go above and beyond what you've signed up for. So really write down those causes and then think about what you feel around them. Yeah. If you're overwhelmed with a color, what would it be? What shades, what textures? Because when we start to examine it, it actually overturns the cycle of trying to do much, because you're in that moment of actually exploring this overwhelm, right? And then think about, identify those things that are in your control to change, right? What is in your control to change? Yeah. For example, if you're stressed about your morning commute, what are your options? Can you wake up a little earlier, take a different route, find a way to make it more enjoyable, perhaps, share a ride with somebody? Just by acknowledging and accepting that you have that lack of control, it's a powerful coping mechanism, because there's some things that are beyond our control. But really think about what's in your control and what can you do to manage or handle that overwhelm. Yeah. And of course, that also links your root cause. And once you know what that root is and you start digging deeper, you'll be much closer to problem solving and feeling better. Then once you really pinpointed the primary source of that overwhelm, ask yourself, what are one or two things can I take off my plate that would alleviate, that would reduce 80% of the stress that I feel right now? Yeah, while you may still feel responsible and you can't completely take these items off your plate, the question will still help you answer what is causing that stress. Yeah. And then you can do something that I like to call, well, it's something that we all use, the Pareto principle of the 80-20 rule, right? And this principle asserts that 20% of your effort will account for 80% of the result. This is really great news when we're learning how to deal with feeling overwhelmed, right? So one technique that I've learned across and in my study, in my research is, and that actually really works well for me, is you make a list of all your responsibilities, your to-do list, whatever it may be, that you really, really, really need to do, like a list of your priorities, right? There may be 10, there may be 15, there may be 20, there may be 30, whatever it may be, right? And look at three, pick three. What are those top three, right? And I'm not saying I'm not going to say that you don't have to do the other priorities on your list, but if you pick three and start working on them one by one, automatically, those are your critical ones you're working on. And of course, everything else will slowly, it'll be a domino effect and it'll fall into place. Yeah. And when you commit to that plan to solve those 20% of the things on your list, you'll experience a sense of relief, which will alleviate the overwhelm. And then, of course, the side benefit is that you'll get a boost of confidence, and that will help you handle the remaining 80%. Now, sometimes it's really difficult to decide what items to prioritize first. So if you can't decide, try closing your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and listen to your intuition. Yeah. Or if that doesn't work, just pick a random one and get to work, because you're training yourself to get back into that routine. Now, oftentimes, we start with our breathing, we work on the thoughts, but sometimes, what helps to start everything off with? We have a lot of thoughts going on in our heads when we're overwhelmed. Yeah, so many ideas, and it clutters your mental space. You know how when you have a desk and you have a lot of reading to do, and it piles up, you don't know where to start because there's a clutter. So one effective technique is to just do a brain dump. Yeah, get everything out of your head onto a piece of paper. Don't worry about editing. Just list everything out. Don't worry about the order of priority. Just get the to-dos onto that piece of paper. Yeah, and then you can go back and prioritize. We talked about making that list, and once you've made that list, you can prioritize those 2 or 3. But at least everything is there. And I know that particularly has helped me in the past, where I just write everything down. I know I have a lot to do. I know I do. But there's a sense of relief when it's done. Now, I like to do this in the evening. So every evening, as part of my evening ritual, I make a list of the things I have to get done, because it allows me to sleep more peacefully too. Otherwise, because I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing in the morning, I get quite worried and concerned about the next day. But if I have it written down, I know that I'm going to somehow tackle it. Another aspect that's related to overwhelm, and I've talked about this before, is setting boundaries. Yeah. Boundaries help keep this overwhelm out, right? By ensuring that you only allow into your life people, activities, and situations that support you, you may find yourself overwhelmed trying to please everyone. Yeah. At the expense of your own health and well-being. And then people take advantage. So without these boundaries, you are going to be overwhelmed. Because often what happens is, when people don't know you have these boundaries in place, they will keep encroaching on them, and they will ask you to handle more and more and more situations which of course leaves you with this sense of overwhelm. Yeah. And, you know, another aspect is if you take on too many projects, is it getting in the way of your long-term goal? So you have boundaries so that any stress you allow into your life is for good reason and it matches your, it aligns with your goals and your values. Yeah. So stress and overwhelm will always happen. Yeah. But panic or trying to ignore it will only make the situation so much worse. But if you allow yourself to recognize the stress response, you understand that you're going through overwhelm and you know what's triggering your overwhelm, you're on your way to handling it, right? So it comes with practice. So the first time it may not work as well as you want to, may be reduced, but the next time it will be, you know, even more reduced until you can actually handle and deal with that overwhelm inside. So one aspect that often find comes hand in hand with overwhelm is perfectionism, right? So our perfectionism tendencies, some of us may have this, some of us may not, but those of us do can help us, lead us in making, you know, taking on tasks or projects bigger than they need to be, right? And then this can lead to procrastination and all cognitive impairment that comes with overwhelm. Yeah. And of course, so when you're got a massive to-do list, really think about getting it done rather than being perfect, right? It's rather like Sheryl Sandberg always says, you know, it's done is better than perfect. So think about it and ask yourself, what is the benefit of spending more time on this task or project? You know, if the benefit is very little, stop. You're done with it. And also understand and recognize that we're human. We can't do everything perfectly. Yeah. Sometimes that email will be overlooked. Sometimes, you know, that, you know, the mess in the house can be left for the next day. Right? And another aspect that would really help is, you know, outsource. Ask yourself, what is the best use of my time? Right? And activities that don't fall within that answer can be taught or delegated to someone else. You know, this can include managing certain projects or certain aspects in the home and delegating the others to somebody else. Outsourcing routine with home or your meal preparation. Yeah, things like that. And sometimes we become stubborn and we actually cling to these responsibilities because you've always done them. And it might be a form of weakness for you if you allow somebody else to do it. But that's something that you have to work on and challenge those assumptions. Yeah, if that overwhelming that overwhelming ongoing struggle, you know, it's likely that you have assumptions that are keeping you stuck or self-limiting beliefs. Yeah. Like, for example, you know, some people have this belief that if it falls through the cracks, and if you don't do it, you've failed. And other people have a belief that if you're not there to help others, you won't be needed. People question your value. Yeah. And for others, it may be if I lose control and mess up, there will be a major consequence. And surprisingly enough, these self-limiting beliefs come as early as when we were 7, 8, 9, 10, and even earlier. So we really have to think about what these self-limiting beliefs are and really become aware of them and deal with them and manage them so we can debunk these beliefs, and it will allow us to handle that overwhelm that we can often surround ourselves with or submerge ourselves with, right? Finally, another aspect actually is to avoid catastrophizing. Yeah. When we're overwhelmed, we always see the worst case scenario. So it's important to practice alternative thoughts, and behavior so that you're not thinking the worst, right? When we have any situation, especially when we're overwhelmed, the worst case scenario is very easy to come with. So we have to become aware and catch ourselves and go back perhaps to that breathing technique to bring you back into that present moment. And of course, one of the key aspects to avoid becoming overwhelmed is organizing your day, right? If you don't organize your day, other people will do it for you. When you have clear direction and focus, it's easier to stop feeling overwhelmed. A lot of overwhelm comes because you're distracted or you're reacting to everybody. So you may feel like you have too many things to do and you don't know which one to do first. So you feel overwhelmed and then you're stuck. But if you have an organized day, this hour is for this, and if you lose focus from the original task, you feel like you're falling behind, so you can go back on track. Yeah. And if you begin the day knowing what you want to achieve, you will minimize this daily overwhelm. So always plan every aspect of the day. And it's very important to even plan and organize the little moments in your day. I've been reading Richard Bandler's work, and he famously said, the most important part of the day should be a kiss, meaning those little moments, the hellos and goodbyes, those little moments with your family or your friends or whatever it may be. That's also an important part to organize your day, because it will help you with your overwhelm too, because you get that relief with the people around you, the people you're connected to. So make sure you do that. And finally, when you do have this list of things to do and you haven't finished everything when you do to-do list, is first of all, have fewer things on your to-do list, because clearly you're an overachiever and you want to do more things than you possibly have time to. But also allow yourself to catch up and plan the next day. So allow that a few additional tasks for the next day. Yeah. And what you can't get done will get done tomorrow. Right? Now, to stop this overwhelm of, oh my gosh, I didn't finish anything on my to-do list, carve out 30 minutes at the end of the day to celebrate what you achieved. Take that time to identify what important things didn't get done that day. And, you get clearer on your priorities, because it'll help you understand that for the following day. Yeah. And then this will also make you feel good about what you've achieved. And then rather than face that overwhelm. And then, of course, you can always start again tomorrow when you've planned what to do with that overwhelm. So I hope that I hope you don't have overwhelm in your life all the time, but the times you do, because we all do. I hope the strategies I've talked about do come in handy, even if you don't use all of them. If you start with one and incorporate that into your life, it should make a big difference. Please let me know how or which one you use. And of course, I have a couple of questions. I understand how people get overwhelmed by the to list, but I get overwhelmed by the exciting things. I want to enjoy these moments, but then I get frazzled in the excitement. Now, that's a really good question, actually. Thank you for asking it. Now, I can completely empathize with that, because sometimes, we often think that overwhelm only comes around negative situations, but then it can also come in the exciting things. So in that moment, you could still follow the same strategy of, breathing in and breathing out, and perhaps journal out. What is it about this big exciting thing that may scare you? Because sometimes what happens is when things are going too well, we can also get scared. And fear and excitement, they have the same vibrational energy. So really think about what it is that you're excited about and actually journal it out and make a list, right, of what you particularly want to enjoy in that moment, right? And then if you feel yourself getting frazzled because, oh my gosh, it's too much to handle, take a moment, take a breath, and allow yourself to be in that present moment of just enjoying that moment. I hope that answered your question and that helped. And then I have another question here that says, I have a plan for my day, then a friend will text me and invite me out. I can't say no, so I end up going. Why is saying no difficult? Now, saying no has a lot to do with it. It's not a simple, this is the answer kind of question, because we all have difficulties to say no for a lot of different reasons. One of them is because, when that friend is asking you out, you may feel like, okay, you want to be a good friend, but at the same time, you may also feel part of you needs that validation of feeling needed. And that's an important aspect for you. And you'll feel like, oh my gosh, if I'm not needed, perhaps I won't be as important in this person's life. And also sometimes, why not have a bit of time on your timetable for unexpected things? Often we do have a very regimented time, but sometimes it's nice to include things in, to say something unexpected has come up. And also, can I ask the scenario of that? Like, is it difficult to say no because you've got a lot of things on your plate? Or I would need to know a little bit more about that so I can answer and help you in more detail. I get overwhelmed by not knowing what other people think about me. Maybe this is worried, but it feels overwhelming. Do you have an exercise to help this kind of overwhelm? So, when you get worried about what other people think, you have to think and ask yourself, why? What makes you worried about that? And then you have to really think about because often it comes down to us. It's not about the other person, it's our insecurities. How do you feel about yourself, right? And make a list of how you feel about yourself, the positive and the negative, because we have shadow parts of ourselves where we don't treat ourselves very kindly. So make a list, and what I would do is from your list, you've got all of your positives. Look at that, the positives every day, so you remind yourself. But then also look at the negative things that you've written down, and really, really look at each one and say, okay, is this really a part of my personality or my story, or is it a story I'm making up? And if you really feel it's a part of you, what are you doing to work on that part, so that you're not worried about what other people are thinking by this point, because you're already doing the work, and you know that you're better than who you were yesterday, because no one knows us better than we know ourselves. And once we have that confidence or certainty within us, then it's so much easier to drown out the voice of others, because not everyone is going to like us, right? And everyone has a different opinion about somebody else. But the point is, if you're secure in yourself, it's going to help you when other people have their opinions. Because I do understand this, not everyone is going to be kind. But if we are kind to ourselves, it's so much easier when we're facing the unkindness or the opinions of others. I hope that helps. And I have one more question here, well, a couple more. I feel overwhelmed in making decisions. I worry about making the wrong decision. How do I make sure that the decision is right for me? Right. Now, this is one that we all have, I'm sure, at times struggled with, And what I'd do is I'd really become aware of what my values are. And when we know what our values are, and I don't mean the values that we think we have, there's an exercise where you can actually look for your values. And I'm very happy to help you with this, where we actually dig deep and look at what your values are, and are you living with those values? Now, when you know what those are, when you have decisions, you've got your values in front of you, and you think about that decision, and you think, is this decision going to help me with my purpose, my goal? What am I trying to achieve? Or will it not? We also have a very strong intuition. So, your intuition may say, oh no, this is not right. And then you dig deeper with it. Why wouldn't it be right? What is it going against? Is it matching my values, or is it not? And from there, you've made that decision. Then you have that sense of confidence within you, that you have to build that confidence that you've made the right decision. And whatever decision may be, it's already been made. And we have to have that conviction to be able to live with it, because you're doing it according to your values, and whether it matches your overall purpose or your goal. I feel bad to say that. Okay, so that's from the previous question about, going off coffee with a friend when they're overwhelmed. So, like I said, when we have anything that's happening in our day or in our life, we have to have space for the unexpected, because things pop up. For example, if you have family or children or friends, something may happen. If you have children, they might fall ill. You know, things come up at work, a new project might come up. So we have to have space in our day, whether that's 30 minutes or an hour, to fit and allow for that. Because then, because you've already allowed for it, it will help with that overwhelm if you feel, oh my gosh, I have to do too much. And if it's really, 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 whatever else is on your plate is too overwhelming, perhaps you can, you can make it a little bit easier, but by still trying to be there for your friend. But rather than a coffee, you can say, I've got too much on my plate. Would you, prefer a phone call, or can we reschedule to tomorrow, or whatever makes it easier to handle the overwhelm? So you're still there for your friend, but you were doing it in a way that where you can manage it. And like I say, always allow for the unexpected. In any part of your day, always allow for the unexpected, because we never know what happens. So in my culture, I'm spiritual. So in my culture, there's a saying where, we plan, but there is always another plan in place also for us. So sometimes it's okay to go with the flow and see what's happening in that moment and allow for it. I hope those answers have helped. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to share. And I really do hope that we can all come to terms with stress or overwhelm that we deal with in a variety of different ways in our lives. Any other questions? Okay, there's one more. Some places really overwhelm me. Crowded places, loud spaces. I love coffee, but coffee machines and cafes overwhelm me. Is this normal? So if certain places overwhelm you, is it an issue for you to avoid those places? I know you mentioned you love coffee, but is that the only place you can get a coffee? Also, if it really does anything that you have that overwhelms you, and it really is stopping you from having a productive or managing in a daily life, then I would suggest it's really helpful to talk to a therapist or a coach to see what it is that overwhelms you. And for all of us, we have different things that overwhelm us. And if it is bothering you and it stops you from living a fulfilling life, then I would definitely speak to somebody about it. But we all have these little eccentricities about us that make us us. For example, I don't like loud noises. Like if there is too much noise, or if the TV is on really loud, or I don't like it. And it makes me frustrated. But what I do is I avoid them, because it doesn't stop me living a productive life or a fulfilling life, but it's just one of the things that I can't handle. Is this normal? I can't answer that, because we all have to decide what is normal for us and what isn't. And we all have a different definition of the word normal. So for you, you may find it not normal, to deal with coffee machines in cafes. And you want to be able to deal with them because you love coffee shops, but don't like the machines. So I would really think about whether it's normal for you or not, and whether you can manage without it, or you really do want to manage with it, or do you want to stretch your comfort zone and actually learn and work on a goal of actually getting over this overwhelm of coffee machines. I hope I've answered your questions. Do we have any more questions? If you have any more, please feel free to email me at info@significantconnection.com. I'd love to hear from you and see how these coaching, how these strategies for overwhelm work for you, or send us an email at Life Coach University. And of course, as always, Life Coach University is the Pay Forward platform. So please tell us how you pay forward. My name is Farhaana. I'm a life and success coach. It's been such a pleasure talking to you today. I already mentioned how I can be contacted at info@significantconnection.com. And if you really are struggling with overwhelm in any way, please feel free to reach out and we can talk about it in more detail. Until next time, much love and blessings going your way. Goodbye.